Hello friends, this video on anatomy of flowering plants part 10 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. So with this we end our discussion on the plant tissues, and I'm sure that you would have now got an idea about all the different types of plant tissues, because that is very important, right? Because when we actually start talking about the internal structure of a root, and if you don't know what is a xylem, what is a phloem, what is a parenchyma, then you don't really understand much of it. You don't really understand why is parenchyma there or why is xylem there. So once you know all these things, it becomes very easy to understand the internal structure. It is just that you draw the structure and you just see that, okay, here is parenchyma and here is xylem. So you just know what is the purpose of each of them. So now, after having studied the plant tissues, now we will talk about the plant tissue system. Now, since you saw that there are a variety of tissues which are present in a plant, so what is done is to keep things simple, or to make the study of anatomy simpler, they grouped the tissues into different systems so that it becomes easier for the study. So broadly, they divided the plant tissues into three systems: epidermal tissue system, ground tissue system, and vascular tissue system. So these are three broad tissue systems. Please do not confuse yourself. Plant tissues is something different. Plant tissue types, everything is fine. Now what happened is, since there are many different types of tissues like simple tissue, complex tissue, again you have parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, there you have xylem, phloem, vascular bundle, so many things are there, right? So to keep things, to make things more convenient, basically, three tissue systems were created: epidermal tissue system, ground tissue system, and vascular tissue system, on a very broader way. So here, if you see, epidermal tissue system will only talk about the epidermis, that is the outer layer. So it will only talk about the outer layer. Vascular tissue system will only talk about the conducting tissues, that is, it will only talk about xylem and phloem. And the ground tissue will talk about all other tissues. So these three tissue systems were at a higher level, were at a broader level. So broadly they were classified into these three. So epidermal tissue system will basically talk about epidermis, vascular tissue will talk about xylem, phloem, and ground tissue will talk about all others. Right? So here we will spend some time on the epidermal tissue system, because epidermis is something which we have not discussed while we were discussing about plant tissues. So we will spend some time in understanding the epidermal tissue system. So let us look at the epidermal tissue system. Epidermal is derived from the term epidermis, and epidermis is again a Greek term which means over skin. It means over skin. It is again a Greek term. So that is why it is the outermost layer. So it is the outermost covering of the plant body. So what is the purpose of epidermis? Very obvious. That is, since it is the outermost covering, so the most important function that it has to do is protection. It has to ensure protection. It has to protect all internal stuffs from external damage. It has to prevent too much loss of water or too much intake of water. So it has to regulate that water balance. So these are some, basically it is like a protection shield for the entire plant body. So it ensures protection, in simple words. So it covers all other parts like leaves, flowers, roots, stems. Everything has a layer of epidermis on outside. So it is basically a boundary between the plant and the external environment. Now the question is, what constitutes this tissue system? Because this tissue system is also consists of some of the tissues. So what are those tissues? So the components of epidermal tissue system are epidermis, stomata, epidermal appendages. So these are the basic components of epidermal tissue system. So epidermis, we all know, the outermost layer. Stomata. What is stomata? Stomata are nothing but the small openings which are present on the surface of leaves. So that is also a part of epidermal tissue system, because even the stomata is present on the epidermis, that is, it is present on the outermost covering. and the epidermal appendages like the root hairs or the stem hairs, the small hair-like structures which are present. So even they are present on the surface. So they should also be part of epidermal tissue system, because epidermal tissue system talks about everything that is over skin, that is on the outermost layer. So these three things are a part of epidermal tissue system. So we will quickly discuss all the three things one by one. So we will start with epidermis. So what is epidermis? It is a single continuous layer of compactly arranged cells. So when I talk, as I said, it is the outermost layer. Okay, fine. So epidermis is nothing but the skin. So outer layer of any part, maybe root, stem, leaf, everything is epidermis. Right? It is a single layer of compactly arranged cells. Compactly arranged, that is very less intercellular space. So why is it compactly arranged? As I said, one of the most important, in fact the basic function of epidermis is protection. Protection against any external damage plus dehydration. That is, there should not be too much of water loss, because if there is too much of water loss, the plant may die. So how do you prevent that? If there are gaps between the cells, if there are spaces between the cells, so water might leak. Some foreign particles which are not good for the plant, that might enter the plant, right? So there should not be any empty spaces. So like in order to protect your house, what do? We close the door, we close the window, we lock everything whenever we go out, so that nobody can enter our house and cause any harm. So similarly here also, the cells are arranged in a compact way so that there are no empty spaces or intercellular spaces in between through which water or any other foreign particles can enter in, and also to prevent dehydration. Right? So it basically prevents loss of water. Now the cells of the epidermis are parenchymatous in nature, so they are all parenchyma cells. So just you look at the diversity or the variety of functions which parenchyma cells can perform. In epidermis, they prevent loss of water, they store food. In some cells like xylem and phloem, there also you have xylem parenchyma, phloem parenchyma, which support the sieve tubes, which help in storing food in the form of starch. So many functions they perform. They have large vacuole with less cytoplasm. So here also they have quite a large vacuole for food storage, but the cytoplasm is considerably less, not too much of cytoplasm. Now, when we talk about epidermis, as I said, it forms the outer layer for root, stem, leaf, everything. Right? So when I talk about root, so in root, there is no cuticle. Now what is cuticle? Before that, let me tell you. Cuticle is a waxy, thick outer layer which is present on epidermis. That means epidermis is one layer of parenchyma cells which are very compactly arranged. Now, this is how it looks like. Suppose, I'll show you here. This is just a rough sketch. Basically, what is epidermis? It is a group of cells which are parenchymatous in nature. So these are all parenchyma cells which are very compactly arranged. So you see there are no gaps in between. They are compactly arranged. That is how the layer of epidermis looks like. But also it is seen that there is a waxy thick layer. So a waxy layer is present on the outer layer of epidermis. Why do we have this waxy layer? What is wax? Wax is nothing but fat. And what is fat? It is hydrophobic. That is, wax is something which doesn't like water. So it will never allow water to pass through it. So this purpose will become stronger with the presence of this waxy layer. So cuticle is that thick waxy layer which is present outside the epidermis, and it prevents the movement of water across it. However, this cuticle is not present everywhere. Like wherever epidermis is present, cuticle is not always present. One such example is root. So on the outer layer of root, epidermis is present, but there is no cuticle. There is no cuticle in case of root. When you talk about stem, so stem also we have epidermis, and what do we have in case of stem? We have epidermal hairs. Epidermal hairs are present, small, thin, fine structures are present. When we talk about leaf, what are present in the form of epidermis? Nothing but stomata. So in case of leaf, the fine pores. So everywhere, but the function everywhere is to prevent water loss. So everywhere the purpose remains the same, that is preventing water loss. But somewhere it takes place through stomata, somewhere it takes place through cuticle. That is only difference, right? So the function of epidermis is to prevent water loss and thereby protecting the plant part. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.